I want to start by just explaining a linear equation. Linear equations are quite simple because you have to just remember one thing and one thing only, the equation itself. Linear equations are at the heart this, mx plus b. We have to describe what each of these are, obviously. M stands for slope. It's what we consider this idea of rate, constant rate of change. So I'm going to say constant rates of change. And so with that being said, what are these other letters for? What is B? B stands for y-intercept. It's the value at x equals to 0. Okay, and then we have to have some other ones. What is x and what is y? X we consider this idea of input, what we put into something. And then, well, if there's in, there's got to be out. So y is output. I want to find out some linear equations, and one of the ways that we can find it is, well, let's just say we were given some values. Suppose that we have m equals to 3, and b equals to -1. All you have to do is just simply plug it in, giving us y equals, well, we have mx plus b. And so ultimately what we have to do is just, well, plug it in. I know that m is equal to 3, so I'm going to say 3x. Instead of plus b, I'm going to put -1. That's it. That's all we have to do. So then now, let's just suppose we have another problem like that. M equals to 1/2 and b equals to 4. I would do the same thing again. So I would have y equals to mx plus b, replacing y with 1/2. So it'll be 1/2 x plus 4, because that's what b is. But suppose I didn't have that. Suppose I only gave you this thing, m equals to -3, and a point, 2, 2. This is what we call a point. What is a point? Essentially what it is that you have a graph, and here would be a point. Maybe your line goes something like this. We don't know. But essentially this is what we call a point. So how am I supposed to find out my linear equation now? Well, I can still have the same setup. Y equals to mx plus b. And I know at least one of them. So I'm going to replace, m with -3 plus b. And what I can do is, well, I don't know b. So that's my goal. My goal is to find b. How am I going to find b? What I'm going to do is I'm going to do this thing called plug in a point. So one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in my x and y to get my stuff. So for example, I have my point, I have x, and I have my y. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the x's with the y's. So for example, the y I'm going to replace with 2, just like this. And then I'm going to replace the x with something, with the point, which is 2. So I'm going to say -3, parentheses, to indicate that it's a change with 2 plus b. Okay, so I have this set up. What am I going to do? Well, what I'm going to do is get rid of the parentheses. So I'm going to say 2 equals to -3 times 2, that's -6, plus b. And just like that, we're going to go back to solving. I'm going to solve for my unknown, which is b. -6 is in the way, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 6 to both sides, making sure that b is alone. 6's cancel out, giving me b equals to 8. So therefore, I have finally what b is. But I'm not done yet, because all I have to now simply do is replace b with that value. So I'm going to say, instead of saying -3x plus b, I'm going to replace that b with our new value, which is plus 8. And that's essentially what we do. All you need to do is just simply remember y equals to mx plus b, and if you're given stuff, plug it in. If m equals to -3, you're going to replace it, and then from there, try to solve b using the given information. We were given a point, all you have to do is plug it in.